Everybody loves a great comeback, and coming up next, we're going to count down the greatest comeback songs of all time. Great stories here, including one where the singer was playing half-empty ballrooms on the oldies circuit. She'd been forgotten. But when her song hit number one, she became the oldest singer to have a number one hit at 45 years of age. Another from a former teen idol who was so uncool that radio wouldn't touch him, so a fan sent in his new song on a blank cassette. When it was played, everybody loved it, but nobody knew who it was. Eventually, it became a smash. And then there was a story where a legend was walking down the hall of a recording studio, and he heard an anonymous song being performed in a studio nearby by a bunch of girl singers. It was so great, he pointed to him and said, "I want that song, and I want those girls." He got both, and it hit number one. We're coming up next with the great comebacks. Stay with us. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you ever had to mess with the rabbit ears on top of your TV back in the good old days to get reception, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now, click the white button, and click the bell so you know when our stuff comes out. Also, make sure to go to professorofrock.com to sign up for our live streams. We're doing one later this week, and other exclusives there. So to get to everything today, we're going to get right into it. We're counting down the top comeback songs of all time. So kicking it off, we're actually going to do 6. Here's my honorable mention. Coming in at number 6, we've got a dramatic 5-minute and 39-second tour de force from 1993. A new wave band that came back in the 90s. It's Ordinary World with Duran Duran. It was in 1986 when Simon Le Bon lost his close friend David Miles. It was a loss that left a mark on his heart and would quietly weave its way into his music. What began as raw grief slowly transformed into a trilogy of deeply personal songs, each one of them exploring the complex emotions of loss and healing. The journey began with Do You Believe in Shame, a song that wrestled with the pain of saying goodbye. And then years later, the story continued with a song called Out of My Mind, a reflective piece laced with longing and introspection.
Do you believe in shame? Got to get you out of my mind.
And then finally, the trilogy reached its poignant conclusion with one of the best songs that Duran Duran ever put out, and they put out some phenomenal ones, Ordinary World, a masterpiece really of acceptance and resilience. The heart of Ordinary World lies in its search for a sense of normalcy amidst, life's chaos. The song draws its inspiration from the phrase ordinary world, serving as both a longing and reflection of the band's desire to find balance in turbulent times. Simon described Ordinary World as capturing the perspective of someone who suddenly finds themselves in a world gone mad. Yearning to rediscover the familiar and comforting ordinary world they once knew. It's a poignant exploration of loss, identity, and the universal need to anchor ourselves in something real. For years, Le Bon kept the inspiration behind these lyrics close to his chest, choosing not to share the deeply personal story behind them. But then in 2004, during an interview included with Duran Duran's Live from London DVD, he opened up about it. He revealed that these songs, though they seemed universal in their themes, were born from his own grief after losing David, a testament to the enduring bond of friendship and the power of music to process and heal. Now, in early 1991, Duran Duran took a different approach to creating Ordinary World. Instead of booking an expensive commercial studio, they actually started working on the track in guitarist Warren Cucurullo's home studio. It was actually named Privacy. The vocal recording for Ordinary World unfolded in a refreshingly organic way. Simon Le Bon actually stood at the center of the room. He was surrounded by the band, who offered harmonies and feedback as the process evolved. The lead vocals were captured over multiple takes, but perfection really wasn't the goal here. Instead, Simon Le Bon focused on timing, letting emotion and authenticity take the lead. In the early 90s, Duran Duran were no longer one of the hottest bands on the scene. In fact, many were ready to tuck them away as old hat new wave. The 80s were gone, alternative and grunge were taken over. The band's own label, Capitol Record Group, They had their doubts about whether Ordinary World would connect at all. To test the waters, though, Duran Duran's record label quietly leaked Ordinary World to a few stations in Florida. The response was electric. Listeners could not get enough. The song quickly gained traction, spreading across the U.S. airwaves while earning heavy rotation on MTV and VH1. This further amplified its momentum. Of course, powered by the intense emotional burning of Ordinary World, Duran Duran's self-titled album became a major success, earning the band their first platinum certification since Notorious in 1986. A lot of people forget that. The single itself became a global phenomenon, topping the charts in Canada and Italy, reaching number 2 in Iceland and climbing to number 6 in the UK. Here in the US, it soared to number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100, and at one point was the best-selling single across Europe, a true testament to the enduring appeal of the band's reinvention. I think it's Duran Duran's best song myself. Okay, continuing the countdowns, we're going off the rails here with a singer who was trying to find his way after fronting one of the greatest bands of the 70s. Talk about Ozzy Osbourne with Crazy Train at number 5. In 1979, Ozzy Osbourne hit rock bottom. After being kicked out of Black Sabbath, the band had defined his career. He found himself spiraling into self-destruction. His life and his career were in shambles. Desperately in need of a lifeline at this point. If Ozzy was going to survive, let alone make a comeback at all, he'd have to find a way to turn it all around. He found his lifeline in Sharon Rachel Arden, who eventually became his wife. Sharon, she truly saved Ozzy's life and helped him get out of the abyss to embark on a solo career. Whenever Ozzy Osbourne has reflected on his solo comeback, Crazy Train stands as a defining moment. The track, it not only marked his triumphant return after parting ways with Black Sabbath, but it also showcased the iconic guitar riff crafted by his then guitarist Randy Rhoads. That riff became the cornerstone of Ozzy's signature solo sound, and it really helped catapult the Blizzard of Oz album to massive success. It was more than just a hit. It was a turning point that solidified Ozzy's place as a force in rock music, proving that he could thrive on his own, just as Sharon, the future Mrs. Osbourne, believed that he could. In Crazy Train, Ozzy Osbourne poses a simple yet forceful question. When are we going to learn to love in a world that seems to have lost its way? The song, it was a dynamic collaboration between Ozzy, guitarist Randy Rhoads, and bassist Bob Daisley. And his creation is steeped in rock history, not only for Ozzy's comeback, but for the emergence of Randy Rhoads, who some regard as one of the greatest, probably at least top 10 guitarists of all time. He was a young rookie. He helped Ozzy pass up the band that had actually kicked him out. So before the song even had a name, Randy and Ozzy were experimenting with the music. Randy's effects pedals produced a strange chugging sound through his amp, a phasey, almost psychedelic effect that caught their attention. Randy, who was a lifelong train enthusiast, had a knack for collecting model trains, and it turned out that Ozzy actually shared the same passion. Listening to that sound, Ozzy remarked, Randy, that sounds like a train, but it sounds nuts. Just like that, he declared, it's a crazy train. From that moment on, the track had its name and a spark of energy that would make it an anthem for the ages. Can you imagine Ozzy playing with a model train? Very cool. So Ozzy was singing melodies and he was phrasing exactly how it ended up while writing the lyrics. Now, before joining Ozzy Osbourne's band, Randy Rhoads was a member of Quiet Riot, honing his craft and preparing for the role that would define his legacy before he passed away. One of the hallmarks of Rhoads' work with Ozzy was his meticulous approach to recording. For solos, like the one in Crazy Train, he had to double his guitar parts, playing every note of the intricate solo twice, perfectly in sync. This painstaking technique gave his solos their distinct layered sound, adding an extra dimension to his already groundbreaking style. Man, we lost a great one when we lost Randy Rhoads. While many assume Crazy Train is another Ozzy Osbourne song about insanity, Of course, many adults would say, well, especially back in the day, that it was satanic. It's actually a commentary on the Cold War. I don't know how many times I've told parents this. The lyrics are packed with clues. Millions of people living as foes, one person conditioned to rule and control. The media sells it and you live the role. And heirs of a Cold War, that's what we've become, inheriting troubles. I'm mentally numb. It's the Cold War. Really, the crazy train becomes a metaphor for the sheer madness of living under the constant threat of nuclear apocalypse. Now, surprisingly, Ozzy's Crazy Train didn't cross over in his first run. It didn't even crack the Billboard Hot 100, and it actually stalled at number 99 on the UK singles chart. But it established Ozzy's solo career and the album, and has since become a stadium rock anthem, one of the biggest songs ever in classic rock history, billions and billions of streams. With the success of Crazy Train, Ozzy left Black Sabbath in the rearview mirror. He came back with a renewed purpose, and he became a true rock icon. All right, coming in at number 4, we go from the Prince of Darkness to squeaky clean Mormon pop idol. It's one of the coolest stories of its time. It's the track that brought back Donny Osmond. It's a smash hit, Soldier of Love. I am willing to fight, 'cause I'm a soldier of love. Donny spent much of the 80s away from the spotlight after being a big teen idol in the 70s. Frustrated by being typecast as a teen idol and wanting to focus on raising his family. And during this time, his brothers took on the task of handling the family's debts from their late 70s TV show and the costly Utah studios they'd built. I've actually been there. By the late 80s, with the debts cleared and older brother Alan Osmond's 1987 diagnosis of multiple sclerosis that put a stop to the family's touring, Donny made his return to the studio. Now, a year later in 1988, Donny signed a deal with Virgin Records in the UK where they released his self-titled album with Soldier of Love as the lead single. Unfortunately, the single only made it to number 29 and Virgin dropped him. You'll see much deeper when you read between the lines. And then to make matters worse, the British press didn't hold back. They mocked him relentlessly. In fact, during one talk show appearance, the host even told him his George Michael-inspired look, ripped jeans and a leather jacket, just wasn't cutting it. After Virgin dropped him, Donny's comeback seemed to be slipping away altogether. But there was still a loyal group of fans who refused to let him fade into obscurity. One such fan, based in the UK, sent a copy of his single Soldier of Love on cassette to a fan in New Jersey. And then this fan, intrigued by the track, decided to pass it along to the influential New York City radio station WPLJ. Didn't mention who the artist was, it was just an anonymous blank tape. This fan knew that judgment would be cast if he included the name, so he wanted the song to stand on its own without any hesitation. Now, somehow, that unmarked cassette found its way into the hands of Jessica Ettinger. She'd recently taken over as the station's program director. Jessica had a sharp ear for music and immediately recognized that this song could be a huge hit. So she actually called the number listed on the tape. The fan had left the number. And the fan answered the phone and told her that the voice on the tape belonged to none other than Donny Osmond. Like a shot in the dark when the going gets rough. So in a stroke of promotional brilliance, Jessica decided to follow suit and air the song as a mystery artist track, inviting listeners to call in and guess who it was. Now the phones lit up instantly with guesses ranging from everybody from George Michael to Boy George. The buzz was electric and the song quickly became a staple on the station. When the big reveal came, the voice belonged to Donny Osmond, it sent shockwaves through the industry. American labels scrambled to sign him, and Capitol Records came out on top. They wasted no time. They released the single nationwide and pushed it to radio stations, many of which eagerly followed WPLJ's lead. It's a state of the heart. You're a soldier of love. Just like that, Donny Osmond was back in the spotlight. Soldier of Love, that was the creation of Carl Sturken and Evan Rogers, a songwriting and production duo juggling multiple projects while trying to launch Rogers' solo career. They scored minor hits with Gavin Christopher's One Step Closer to You and Karen White's Facts of Love, but their success in R&B was starting to pigeonhole them as genre-specific writers, a label that they didn't really want. So when the opportunity to work with Donny Osmond came along, they saw it as a chance to break into the pop world and eagerly took the gig. I'm willing to fight. Even to this day, Donny refers to Soldier of Love as the most important record of his life. For good reason. I mean, it was a song that reintroduced him to the contemporary pop scene. One of the biggest comebacks ever. I mean, this was after a decade of relentless effort to reclaim his spot on the charts. It was a single that proved to everybody that, wrote him off as a has-been teen idol completely wrong. Soldier of Love was a glorious comeback song for Donny. It rose to number 3 on the singles chart in Canada. And it just missed number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, reaching number 2. Had a great follow-up as well, Sacred Emotion. Now, I've never been a big fan of Donny's music, right? I like this song, okay? But I'll tell you something. Donny Osmond, I went and saw him live a couple of years ago. He and Marie in Vegas. My mom was she was in love with Donny Osmond, so I took her and my dad to this concert with my wife. I tell you what, I was blown away. I could not believe, Donny Osmond's incredible. He's an incredible live performer. Not only a great singer, but a great performer. He danced his ass off. And he's in his 60s. Just incredible. It's one of the most incredible performances I've ever seen, really. All right, halfway through our countdown, I have a track that epitomizes the definition of a comeback song. It's from an artist that was on the wrong side of 40 when she became an icon. If you haven't guessed it by now, I'm talking about What's Love Got to Do With It by the incomparable Tina Turner. Now, What's Love Got to Do With It was written by Graham Lyle and Terry Britton. It was recorded by Tina Turner for her 5th studio album, Private Dancer, released in May of '84. It became Tina Turner's biggest selling hit. What's love but a second-hand emotion? Before Tina recorded it, the song really struggled to find its footing, and Tina actually didn't like it at all, initially. Terry Britton and Graham Lyle had written several hits for Sir Cliff Richard, including Devil Woman and Carrie. So naturally, they gave What's Love Got to Do With It to Cliff Richard, but his handlers rejected it. They were shocked. A few months before Tina recorded the song, British group Bucks Fizz, they were offered the track. Member Jay Aston, intrigued by the demo, asked to sing lead, but was told by the producer that it wasn't suitable for a female lead vocal. That's interesting. The group went ahead and recorded it in February of '84 with male member Bobby G on vocals. According to Aston, the demo closely resembled Tina Turner's eventual version, but their final take had a completely different style. It was slated for their upcoming album, I Hear Talk, but the song was shelved after Tina released her iconic version first. Who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? Now, What's Love Got to Do With It is essentially an anti-love song, and Tina Turner was not down with it at all, like I said. She initially resisted recording it, but wisely trusted her manager, a guy named Roger Davies, who was orchestrating her comeback and believed the song would be a smash hit. Now, when Roger became interested in working with Tina, she was pretty much on the oldies circuit. Like I said, she was performing for half-empty hotel ballrooms. Roger was a godsend for Tina, and his strategy for getting her back in the limelight, it was brilliant. He was friendly with Terry and Graham, and when they submitted their composition to Roger, he jumped at the chance to take it to Tina. While Tina had achieved a top 30 hit in late 1983 with her cover of Al Green's Let's Stay Together, What's Love Got to Do With It marked her first and only Billboard Hot 100 #1 single. It sold over 2 million copies worldwide. And at 44 years of age, almost 45, Tina Turner set a record as the oldest solo female artist to top the Billboard Hot 100. What's love got to do? It's got to do with it. In the 2021 documentary film Tina, it's revealed that co-writer Terry Britton encouraged Turner to slow the pace of the song when she was singing it and imagined that she was jogging. It triumphantly earned her the #1 position not only in the US, but in Australia and Canada. It also earned Grammys for Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Female Pop Vocal. That's back when the Grammys actually meant something to us. Okay, we're at the bridesmaid position, and this comeback song happens to be sung by one of the most prodigious lyricists of all time. But he actually didn't write it. At number 2, I got Smokey Robinson with Just to See Her.
Just to see her again.
Smokey had a major hit in 1981 with Being With You, but after the song's success faded, he fell into a deep funk, struggling with addiction and depression.
Else but being with you, being with you.
And things took an even darker turn in 1984 when his close friend Marvin Gaye was tragically shot and killed by his father. This loss devastated Smokey, pushing him further into the depths of his cocaine addiction. Then a bona fide miracle happened to the leader of the miracles. Here's what Smokey told me about it.
I would do anything.
Through some of my friends, I tell people this all the time. You know, people think that when you start doing heavy drugs and stuff like that, that some character has come from out of nowhere or some dope man or something and convinced you to do this and all that, you know, which is not true at all. I speak nowadays, Adam. I speak at schools and rehabs and gang meetings and churches and wherever they call me to speak. And I talk about my affliction to the drug cocaine with the weed.
Yeah.
Okay. It starts with your friends. You're not going to accept anything like that from a stranger.
Right.
It starts with your friends. You think you're having fun and you look up and fun has wiped you out. Okay. It has killed you because I was a walking corpse after 2 years. I don't understand. I go and I speak at rehabs, man, like I said, and I talk to young people and they've been doing, and I was so happy when I look back on it, when I look back on something that I think is a positive for me as far as it's concerned. It was way before they came out with crack, you know,
Yeah.
I'm really happy about that. But I talk to young people, man, who have been doing crack and stuff like that, cocaine, whatever, for 10 years. And they're 20. You know what I mean? I don't know how they have lasted this long because after 2 years of that, I was a walking corpse. So one of my closest friends came and got me and took me to a church where this woman minister, Pastor Jean Perez, prayed for me, okay? And I was healed. I tell people all the time I was healed. I was not cured. I didn't go to the doctor. I didn't go to rehab. I didn't go to any of that. I love the fact that those things are available for people who are afflicted, that they have doctors and rehabs and places like that, you know.
Sure.
I've always regretted the fact that they didn't have that back in the day. So a lot of people who succumbed to that kind of stuff didn't have the opportunity to go to those places and be cured. Okay. But anyway, she prayed for me and I was healed. And that was in May of 1986. Okay. And I walked into that church an addict. I wasn't high when I got there because I knew I was going to church, so I didn't want to be high.
Yeah.
But when I left out of that church, I was free.
Mm.
I haven't done a drug since that time.
Wow.
Okay. So that's, you know, anyway, yeah. So just to see her,
Yeah.
the A&R guy at Motown was a guy named Russ Regan at that time. And Russ and I were very close. And Russ brought this song to me. He said, man, I got a hit song for you. I said, okay, let me hear it. And he played Just to See Her for me. And Just to See Her is one of those songs people say, you ever heard something you wish, I wish I had written a lot of songs, but it's a song that I wish I had written. It has one of the greatest melodies on the chorus of any songs that I've ever heard. It compares to that, you know. I loved, and when I first said, I would do anything, that was just so profound, for such a great melody to me. So I loved it from the moment he played it for me. And I said, okay, I'm going to go in the studio and record this, which I did. I'm so happy that I did because it's one of my biggest songs ever. And it is still one of my mainstay songs in person.
Not long after this, while still with Motown Records, Smokey was approached by an executive who handed him a demo of Just to See Her. And he did what he's done so many times. He made the song an absolute classic. The song hit number 8 on the Hot 100, and it hit number 1 on the AC charts, and also earned him his first and only Grammy. How about that? All right, now the number 1 song on our top 5 comeback songs countdown. This one's a no-brainer. It's the return of the king, our king, Elvis Presley with Suspicious Minds. Suspicious Minds was written in 1968 by Mark James, who also co-wrote Always on My Mind. Of course, Elvis recorded that in 1972.
You were always on my mind.
Mark first recorded and released Suspicious Minds on Scepter Records in 1968.
With suspicious minds.
At the request of producer Chips Moman, Mark relocated from Houston to Memphis to write for American Sound Studio, which was quickly gaining a strong reputation thanks to hits like The Box Tops, The Letter, and others.
I'm a going home. My baby just wrote me a letter.
Now, late one night, James found himself alone with his Fender guitar, lost in kind of a creative trance that only the stillness of the evening can inspire. With his Hammond organ pedals laying down a steady bass line, his fingers danced across the strings. Before he knew it, a melody emerged. Simple, yet irresistibly catchy. It felt like the kind of tune that sticks in your head, the kind that comes from somewhere really deep and not just a passing whim. But Mark's thoughts weren't entirely on music as he was playing around. At the time, he was married to his first wife, a lady named Shirley Yates, the woman who had stood by him as he chased his dreams. Yet, no matter how much he tried to convince himself otherwise, his heart still held a place for his childhood sweetheart, the one that he'd actually left behind in Houston, now married to someone else. Now, Shirley had sensed this too, the weight of his lingering feelings, and this cast a shadow over their marriage. It was a very turbulent time for Mark, filled with contradictions that he couldn't quite untangle.
You see suspicion in your eyes.
He would say, and I quote, "It was like we were all caught in this trap that we couldn't walk out of." Of course, those became the lyrics.
We're caught in a trap. I can't.
He reflected on the emotional crossroads that he, Shirley, and his old flame seemed unable to escape, and he captured that feeling of hopelessness in the chorus for Suspicious Minds. Now, Elvis hadn't set foot in a Memphis recording studio since 1955. All that changed in 1969. Fresh off the momentum of his electrifying 68 comeback special, Elvis was ready to reconnect with the roots of his sound. And Memphis, it was calling.
If I can dream of a better land.
The special had caught the attention of legendary producer Chips Moman, who was eager to work with Elvis and explore a bold new direction. It was Marty Lacker, one of Elvis's closest friends, who suggested American Sound Studio as the perfect place to make this happen. There, Elvis poured himself into the sessions, blending rock, gospel, country, rhythm and blues, and soul into something uniquely his own. The result was From Elvis in Memphis, a landmark album that marked not just his return to the Memphis music scene, but also a reinvention of his artistry. Now, Donna Jean Godchaux, who lent her voice to the original Mark James recording of Suspicious Minds and then later to Elvis's version, she shared a memorable story about how things unfolded, and I want to quote it to the T because it's really cool. She recalled how fate and timing brought the king of rock and roll to this song. She said that Elvis was in the studio of American Sound in Memphis. And Mark James, the songwriter behind Suspicious Minds, he had an office there and he often worked on his music. And that day, Elvis was strolling down the hallway and Mark just happened to be playing the demo that they just finished. Donna and her fellow vocalists had recorded the background harmonies, giving the track its haunting, soulful touch. When Elvis heard this song, he did not hesitate. He stepped into Mark's office and pointedly declared, "I want that song and I want them girls." And just like that, Donna Jean and her vocals became part of one of Elvis's most iconic recordings, along with other singers Mary Jeannie Green, Ginger Holiday, and Mary Holiday. In the early hours of September 23rd, 1969, between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m., Elvis stepped into the studio and he made history. It was during these groundbreaking Memphis sessions that he recorded Suspicious Minds, the track that would become the pivotal song, the swaggering return to the throne as the king of rock and roll.
And we can build our dreams.
Now, Elvis's close friend Marty Lacker, who, as I mentioned, played a key role in convincing the king to record in Memphis with Chips Moman, he revealed that fake ending on Suspicious Minds wasn't part of the original plan. According to Marty, it was the result of tampering by Elvis's longtime producer, Felton Jarvis. All of a sudden, it seems like it's fading out, the song, and then the song comes, the volume goes down, and then all of a sudden it comes back up with Elvis bringing the song to a fever pitch again. It's what helped make it a classic, let's be honest. Suspicious Minds was a huge comeback for Elvis. It was his first #1 hit since Good Luck Charm in 1962. During those years, he was stuck cranking out a string of forgettable movies while his music lost its edge. But Suspicious Minds changed all of that. Went straight to #1 in late '69, becoming his 18th #1 hit. Man, what a classic.
Don't believe a word I say.
By 1970, Elvis was back on tour, his first in 9 years, and he was packing houses in Las Vegas as a headlining star. The return of our king. There you have it. The top comeback songs ever, and of course we had to end with Elvis Presley. What do you think? What are your memories of these songs, and what are your top 5 or 6 comebacks of all time? What do you think I missed? It was hard to leave out Neil Sedaka because he had such a great comeback. We just covered that a few weeks ago. And of course, there's so many other ones. But let me know. What do you think? What are your top comebacks? What are your memories? Let's have a great discussion. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. And until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.